Today is the day when Bill Shorten has another opportunity to prove that he really does care about jobs. If Bill Shorten really cared about jobs, he would come out today to confirm that he will support our legislation to scrap the carbon tax. Or doesn't he have the courage to stand up to the Greens and the left in the Labor Party in favour of the public interest and in support of jobs? Because the carbon tax pushes up the cost of doing business. That's why it is costing jobs. Scrapping the carbon tax would bring down the cost of doing business, which is why it would help create jobs. Bill Shorten should walk into his Labor caucus today and seek a mandate to support our legislation to scrap the carbon tax, because it is the right thing to do to support economic growth and jobs across Australia. Happy to take any questions.
What about Qantas jobs? There's reports today that more jobs could be cut and its Melbourne terminal could be closed. How close are we to seeing a deal with the government? Is there going to be one?
Well, I'm not going to comment on speculation. I mean, these are issues for Qantas to address. Our position has been on the record for some time. We are of the view that the restrictions imposed on Qantas in the Qantas Sale Act ought to be removed. They're making it harder for Qantas to compete in what is a highly competitive market. Beyond that, we are currently considering some proposals that were put before us by Qantas, and when we are in a position to make an announcement, we'll make it.
But what impact is that going to have on the budget, though, and on the economy, with possibly 5,000 jobs going?
Well, we are totally focused on implementing our agenda to build a stronger economy and create jobs, which is why it is so important that Labor finally stops its disgraceful filibuster in the Senate. Bill Shorten has the opportunity to walk into the caucus today and stand up for what is right. We know that that is what he privately believes. We know that so far he hasn't had the courage to stand up for what is right, to stand up for jobs, by staring down the Greens and the left of the Labor Party. It seems that Bill Shorten is more focused on keeping his job than on the jobs of people across Australia.
Qantas is making an announcement on Thursday. How soon after that can we expect to hear from the government whether they will get assistance and in what form?
Well, let's see what the announcement is, if there is one, later this week, and we'll make an announcement sometime at the appropriate time once we've made our decisions.
Is there a sense of urgency, though?
Well, we are going through all of these sorts of decisions after proper and careful consideration, having gone through a proper and methodical process, and we're approaching this issue in the exact same way.
Just on customs visas, the expert panel investigation into rorting, do you think that will show that Labor was inappropriate to crack down on those visas?
Look, that is well and truly beyond my area of responsibility and expertise. I will let Scott Morrison answer those questions.
But the coalition was pushing for more places and saying that this was an attack led by unions.
Well, there are a lot of things that are done by unions across Australia that are not good for the economy and not good for jobs. This particular issue is an issue that should appropriately be addressed by Minister Morrison.
Did the customs boss, Mike Pizzullo, ask for your consent to run a budget deficit? Did you knock back that request, and what implications will that have for jobs?
Well, we don't comment on specific budget speculation, but as a general point, I would just make the general point that the government expects all departments to live within their means, to live within their budget allocation. We addressed a whole series of legacy issues that we had inherited from the previous government in the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook, and in the usual way, any other remaining issues that we've inherited from the previous government will be addressed in the budget.
Even though that would mean job cuts at customs?
Well, the previous government made decisions before the last election which are leading to the reduction in the size of the public service, which are leading to job cuts across the public service to the tune of 14,500 or thereabouts. Those job cuts were never disclosed by the previous government. The issues that departments across government are dealing with at the moment are a direct result of the efficiency dividends that were imposed by the previous government before the last election. Now, we have inherited a budget in very bad shape. We've inherited a budget with $123 billion worth of projected deficits, with debt heading for $667 billion, and we inherited a lot of problems right across government. We addressed a number of those problems in the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook. Any other remaining issues will be dealt with in the usual way, in the proper way, in the context of the next budget.
But didn't you promise no cuts to frontline services, no job cuts to frontline services like customs?
Well, as I've just said, there are decisions which were made by the previous government to cut funding to departments right across government, which are leading to job cuts now. In fact, the decisions that the previous government made caused 14,500 job cuts across the public service, which are still working their way through. Incredibly, the previous government imposed 14,500 job cuts without making any funding available to government departments to fund those redundancies. In the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook, and this is a matter of public record, we did provide funding to assist departments with funding those redundancies which were caused by the actions of the previous government.
All this talk about budget cuts and a hard budget ahead and government running out of money, is that being reflected in the polls, which has shown Labor now with an 8-point lead in the news poll today?
Look, we went to the last election with a plan to build a stronger economy, to create more jobs and to repair the budget. We're getting on with it. We're implementing our plan, and we are delivering on our commitments.
So you're not concerned about the result today?
We're just getting on with the job.
Mathias, what's your view on a government debt guarantee? Of course, in the context of Qantas, is it a taxpayer handout or is it just an insurance policy for the government?
Well, right now we are considering various proposals that have been put to us by Qantas, and
about a government debt guarantee.
I'm sure you would like me to talk in general terms, but I will talk about the specifics. And the specifics are that Qantas is a private business. Qantas needs to do what it needs to do to get its own house in order. That is a matter for Qantas. We do recognise that they're facing restrictions under the Qantas Sale Act, which are making it harder for them to compete. And in our view, those restrictions should be removed. At some point, no doubt, that'll be a matter for the Parliament to consider. But as far as any specific proposals by Qantas are concerned, we'll make an announcement, we'll express a view when we have properly considered all of the aspects of that.
Side of this at the moment, but Qantas have made it clear that the other side is not just a Sale Act, it's a government debt guarantee. So is it a taxpayer handout or is it just an insurance policy?
And this government will continue to do what we've done right from the start, and we will consider these issues carefully. We'll go through a proper methodical process, and when we have properly dotted all of the I's and crossed all of the T's, we'll make an announcement.
Are you considering a government debt guarantee?
Well, we are considering a range of proposals put to us by Qantas, and we'll make an announcement when we've concluded those considerations.
Do you agree with Tony Abbott that spending growth in health and education does need to be curbed?
Well, what we've said in the lead up to the last election, and what the Prime Minister again confirmed last night, is that under the coalition there will be no cuts to health and education. But of course, in order to ensure that our investment in world-class hospital services, in world-class educational services remains sustainable into the future, we do have to ensure that funding is as efficient as possible, as well targeted as possible, and that we are able to limit growth. I mean, that is obviously something that the Australian people would expect us to do, because if we just keep ramping up spending inefficiently and not well targeted, then we would have to charge and impose more taxes on people than what people would want us to do. We want to pursue lower taxes so that we can strengthen our economy, create more jobs, which of course means that spending growth in very important areas across government is as high as necessary but as low as possible.
But will
Tony
you be limiting?
has failed in its obligation to look after detainees on Manus Island in the wake of the violence over there?
Scott Morrison is an outstanding minister who's doing a very good job. We went to the last election with our promise to stop the boats as one of our most emphatic commitments, and Scott Morrison is delivering on that commitment. More than 2 months now without an irregular maritime arrival. And just remember, over the 6 years of the period of the previous government, we had more than 1,000 people die at sea because more than 50,000 people arrived in Australia illegally by boat. We promised that we would stop the boats. The boats are stopping, and Scott Morrison is doing an outstanding job.
I was specifically asking about G4S. Do you think they have a lot of answers that they need to?
Well, I mean, obviously there's some inquiries underway now, and again, I mean, I let the responsible minister deal with these sorts of issues.
Labor says it's going to support Parliament's apology to Craig Thomson. Do you welcome that?
Well, you know, it's very clear now. You know, it was clear to a lot of us then. It's very clear now to everyone that Craig Thomson misled the Parliament. He should apologise for that. It's a matter that's going to resolve itself in the House of Representatives.
Joe Hockey said at the weekend that structural reform needs to be tackled almost immediately. Can the government then afford to wait until after the next election?
Well, structural reform does have to start almost immediately. I mean, we have inherited a budget in very bad shape. We've inherited a budget with $123 billion worth of projected deficits, with debt heading for $667 billion without any corrective action. So, I mean, these are obviously the sorts of issues that the Treasurer and I are currently working through as we are working with the Prime Minister and the Cabinet on putting the next budget together. You know, obviously, there are some things that you can do straight away. There are other things that, you know, will be medium to long-term reforms, and all will be revealed on the second Tuesday in May.
You say that you want to limit spending growth in health and education. Will that happen in this term?
Well, again, I mean, I'm not going to deliver our budget here for you today. Our budget will be delivered on the second Tuesday in May, and all will be revealed. I might just have to rush.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.